Hello, we're going to now do the unit Right to Life. So that's looking for three topics. One, only in Islam, about life after death. And then the other two, in Christianity and Islam, abortion and euthanasia. All these issues are what you would call metaphysical issues. That is, questions about, actually, we'll see. So I've got the actual definition here. It says, portraying, I guess that's a rubbish definition, concerned with abstract thoughts or subjects such as existence, causality, or truth. Now that sounds quite confusing, but the key idea there is concerned with issues of existence, and the issue of existence that we're looking at is when does something become alive? When does life start? That's a particularly important issue. Now, I think it's actually probably better to start off with Christianity just because that's been the route so far. But when we do Islam, we're going to cover one other topic, which is when life begins. With Christianity, we're just looking at abortion and euthanasia. So we've got our key terms first. So the first thing is metaphysical, issues concerned with existence, causation or truth. And obviously because it's concerned with life, it's when does life exist, when does life first happen. So as a result, that is these issues of abortion, euthanasia, and life after death are all issues, metaphysical issues. Other key terms. So abortion, the deliberate termination, ending of a pregnancy, usually before the fetus is 24 weeks old. The reason it says usually is because that's a legal definition. After 24 weeks, it's seen not to be legal, but it's a deliberate ending of a pregnancy, not killing anything necessarily. It depends on, metaphysically speaking, when we decide killing happens, but it is ending a pregnancy, stopping a pregnancy from happening. Chastity, sexual purity, that's going to be relevant, not having sex before marriage. Contraception, the artificial and chemical methods used to prevent pregnancy, in particular the morning after pill, because taking the morning after pill, will, as we'll see, is seen by some Catholics to be abortion. Deterrence, to put people off committing crimes or put people off committing a sin, that's going to be relevant. Disability discrimination, strangely enough, interestingly, that's relevant to abortion because should someone have should someone have an abortion if it turns out someone will have a disability. Embryo is a very important term here. Embryo is a fertilized ovum at 12 to 14 days. So this is when the ovum, the sperm and the egg have met, and this is starting to grow into something. We don't know what it is, but it's starting to grow into something when that sperm has met the egg, and that's called an embryo, and that's 12 to 14 days after conception. Equality, the idea that everyone should be treated equally, may be relevant here. Euthanasia comes from the Greek word, means good death, euthanasia. So death that is done with good intentions, i.e. someone being in lots of pain, or someone being unable to kill themselves. Fetus is a fertilized ovum from 8 weeks, so this is when it starts to take more of an anthropomorphic form, more of a human-shaped form, and that's called the fetus. That's often the type of thing that we see when we look at images of fetuses in topics of abortion. Hospices, this is relevant to euthanasia, special places where people go to die with dignity. Now, dignity is dying with self-respect, so if someone is unable to move and talk and such things as this, they might be sent to a hospice, so they're at least cared for and not treated with self-respect. We'll go over non-voluntary and passive euthanasia in a second. Palliative care, P-A-L-L-I-A-T-I-V-E. P-A-L-L-I-A-T-I-V-E. Palliative care. That is allowing a terminally or incurably ill person to die, but not actually killing them, but just letting that process happen naturally, but with as little pain as possible. So that might be giving the people massages often, letting them rest, giving them pain-relieving drugs. These are all examples of palliative care. Music could be an example of palliative care. Medicinal drugs, medicinal marijuana has been used in America, and also what's an opiate, which is morphine, which is basically putting people under a state where they don't feel any pain whatsoever. These are examples of palliative care that are used when people are in extreme levels of pain. So you understand they're in lots of pain, so it's okay to use certain more extreme measures to make sure the person is in less pain as they start to die. Two key terms for abortion: pro-choice and pro-life. Pro-choice is saying that women should have the choice whether to have an abortion or not have an abortion. And then pro-life is the idea that women shouldn't have the choice. What's more important is the life of the fetus. So the idea that, so you got pro-choice, should women have a choice whether they abort or not abort? And pro-life, no, what matters most is not the woman's choice, but whether the fetus itself inside the body is alive or not. And if that's killing, then that could be seen to be wrong. So pro-choice says abortions are okay because it's a woman's choice. Pro-life is saying abortion is wrong once it's alive. Quality of life is an important issue for both abortion and euthanasia. That's basically saying how good is a person's life going to be. So how good is a fetus's life going to be once it becomes a baby or living being, or how good is that person's life going to be in old age if they cannot move or if they're living an undignified life at that time. Sanctity of life, one of our S's, the idea that life is always sacred because it's God-given. Self-determination, to determine. Remember, we have determinism, which is the idea that you are determined by God or the world around you. Self-determination is the idea that you should have the right to determine what happens in your life. So, in particular, in relationship to euthanasia, if I want to die now, I should have the right to self-determination, a right to kill myself if I chose to do that. Terminal, in particular for euthanasia, when a disease is incurable. So that's when someone is so sick that you know that disease is going to kill them one way or another. Either that, unless they kill themselves or something else happens. Voluntary euthanasia. So let's go through our different terms for euthanasia. So we've got voluntary euthanasia, which is when the person can communicate. They are in a state where they're in lots of pain and they want to die, and they say, look, I need to die now. Please let me die. And that, please kill me, because I can't kill myself, but please can you let me die? That's voluntary euthanasia, when someone asks to be killed. Involuntary euthanasia is when the person is unable to say whether they want to die. They can't even speak anymore. So they're like that. They're like, oh, I can't even speak. But people watching them are thinking, that person is in so much pain. Let's just let them die. Let's kill them, because that is not right for someone to be living in that kind of state. So you've got voluntary, someone chooses to die. Involuntary, someone else makes a choice for them that they should die. Then you've got passive and active. Active, which is an easier one, someone might give them a lethal injection or give them a drug that they take, which kills them pretty much instantly. Then you've got, so that is actually doing the act of killing. Passive euthanasia is not actually killing the person, but stopping, say, the life support machine from working or not feeding that person anymore so that they die naturally. So I'm not actually killing the person, but I'm not giving them the resources necessary for them to stay alive so they eventually die. So I'm not necessarily technically killing the person, I am choosing not to keep them alive. So that's quite, it's a way of dodging that kind of thou shalt not kill conundrum. Blastocytes. This is something that is more of a kind of like, if you're looking for your 100%, that's the fertilized ovum at 5 to 7 days. So, someone has had sex, it's a week later, they might take they might choose to have an abortion then, or choose to attempt to use a morning after pill, although you'd have to take something quite strong there. And at that time, it's an ovum that's starting to grow at 5 to 7 days. It's not really so visible at that point. Compassion, the idea of showing understanding and respect to someone else's pain. Embryo, as we said, I'm going to repeat it again though because it is important. Fertilized ovum at 12 to 14 days. 12 to 14 days, embryo. Embryo, 12 to 14 days. Embryo, 12 to 14 days. Embryo, 12 to 14 days. Very important to remember that one. It's going to be relevant for stuff like stem cell research and all sorts of things. Life support machine. So this is something that keeps someone alive over a large period of time or a short period of time. Something that keeps a person living, but they are reliant on that machine to keep them alive. Viable is a state at which a fetus could survive if it were to be born. So sometimes people say that abortion is okay until the fetus is viable, because then it can support itself. I know a certain student in year 10 who has discussed this idea about viable. So when the fetus can support itself, then it's viable. So the mother could die, but the fetus could stay alive. So Vita Halappanavar's case may be relevant there. Even though the fetus wasn't viable at that point. And a zygote, a newly fertilized ovum. So that's basically the state of this developing thing, this before it's a fetus, before it's an embryo, before it's a blastocyte, and before that it's a zygote. And that's at conception, the sperm has met the egg, and that's where it is, that's a zygote. So there's your key terms. Arabic terms we have from before. I'm just thinking of any Arabic terms that might be particularly useful here. Sharia law would be relevant. Jihad, a personal struggle that a woman could go through. Jihad could be there. I don't think any others are. So that's our key terms. Quite a lot for this one. Cool.